Today we talk about the best horror I've read so far this year. And first up, we have October Film Hunt by Michael Wehunt. This is a book I randomly stumbled across at the library. I thought the synopsis sounded pretty good. So, 10 years ago, Jory Stroud was the rising star of a trio of horror enthusiasts who camped out at the filming locations of their favorite scary movies, sharing their love through their popular blog. But after a night in the graveyard, from the film Proof of Demons, perhaps the most chilling cult film ever made, directed by the enigmatic Helene Enriquez, everything unraveled. And the cult film, there's all these rumors that it was actually real, that it actually happened. This book is so freaking weird. And the ending is one of those kind of open-ended endings that you're like, what exactly happened? And I know a lot of people don't always like that kind of ending, but I am a fan of those, and I really like this. Jory has built an isolated life with her young son in Vermont, and in the devastating wake of her viral truth-stretching Proof of Demons blog entry, hysteria, internet backlash, and then the death of a young woman, Jory kind of put it all behind her, and the group broke up basically and stopped doing what they were doing because there was this girl who went out to the place where they had stayed. She ended up dying. She was wearing one of their t-shirts, and so all this blame was put on them. They broke up. They're done. But it's not done with her, is it? Because a videotape arrives in the mail, and Jory fears that someone might be filming her. The Rickies, which are the Enriquez obsessives, they would do anything for the reclusive director. And they begin to cross lines in really disturbing ways. And it seems that Helene Enriquez is making a new kind of sequel, and Jory is her final girl. That whole premise of staying at the film locations of weird, scary movies and camping out there and then writing about it, I thought that was a really cool premise. Ended up being a really great book. Oh, I should also say these aren't really in a particular order. My number one, though, is my number one. So next up, we have Japanese Gothic by Kylie Lee Baker. And it follows the story of this guy, Lee, who murders his college roommate. He doesn't remember why or how or when he did this, but he knows he needs to get the F out of Dodge and get away from where he is. So he leaves the States and he goes to where his dad lives in Japan at his new house and stays there, which turns out used to be this old samurai house. And so there's some weird stuff going on with the house. No animals will go near it. There's a window in his bedroom that isn't always a window. One night, late at night, he sees a girl outside with a katana. And then his closet in his room isn't a closet. It's just a cement wall in there. But sometimes there's a doorway that opens up. And that's how him and the girl who was in the yard then meet. It's strange and eerie and atmospheric. And I'll give you the synopsis. October 2026 is the time frame that Lee is in. So killed his roommate, had to go to Japan to his father's house, and then all that weird stuff going on. So October 1877 is Sen's time. Sen is a young samurai in exile and hiding from the imperial soldiers in a house behind the sword ferns. A monster came home wearing her father's face, but Sen would do anything to please him, even turn her sword on her own family, and she knows the soldiers will soon slaughter her whole family when she sees a terrible omen, a young foreign man who appears outside her window. I thought it was beautifully sad. It moves at a very steady pace, which I loved, because it is it's called Japanese Gothic, and usually Gothic stories can be very slow and molasses, but this one had a great steady pace, and I was always continuously interested in the story and what was happening, and the way that the characters move between the timelines I thought was done really well, and would recommend. Obviously, these are my best horror of the year, so everything on this list I would recommend. Next up, we have The Caretaker by Marcus Cleaver. This is another one of those books that has a very open ending that leaves a lot to the imagination. So, as I said, if you don't like that, don't read it. Because you won't enjoy it, and you'll be upset that the ending ended the way it did. I like books like that because it makes my gears turn. It makes me think about what if, what was this, who were these, what are those? And when I say what are those, I mean the visitors. Okay, so, premise of the book. Our main character, Maisie Mullins, answers an ad on Craigslist for a caretaker for 3 days, competitive pay. And so she goes to the interview, and when she gets there, she finds out the job isn't exactly what was advertised. The thing is, it pays really well. Macy is desperate, And if she doesn't figure out some way to come up with money soon, her and her younger sister are going to be evicted from the apartment where they live, and they'll basically be homeless. Their parents have both passed away, and so if she doesn't take this job, they're pretty much effed. But taking this job, she might be pretty much screwed. So there's some strange stuff that she needs to take care of while she's there. And she needs to follow these, like, rites. So the rites are a little weird. And Grace, who is the woman who lives in the house that needed a caretaker for her husband, and her husband had some eccentricities and whatnot, gives her this VHS tape that she's going to watch, and it's the husband telling you what you need to do for certain things that happen. Like, you need to make sure between the hours of like 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. that the lights all stay off on these specific floors, and you have 3 minutes to turn them off. If you don't, this will accelerate to the next step of something going wrong. And the next thing is that there'll be these bunnies that find their way into the house, and that is very bad. If they come in, you need to get them out and throw them out the door. But if you can't get them out in the right time frame, you have to do something to dispose of them. And then if you don't do that on time, like, it just keeps getting worse and worse. Then the visitors come, and who the F are the visitors? I still don't know. They come, they knock on the door, you gotta follow them out into the woods, and then you gotta calm them down. And if you can't, you gotta run back to the house to make sure they don't get there before you and lock the doors. And then at some point, if you F all this up, they're gonna get a phone call from some people from God knows where who are gonna be like, this is what you need to do. And it just keeps getting like crazier and crazier and crazier. And it's like a super addictive read. And then the ending is like, what the F? It made me think about it. It made me want to read it again. It's just so weird. If you read We Used to Live Here by this author, he writes very weird books. And if you like that weird, liminal, out there kind of feel, then I would say check out The Caretaker. Okay, next up, we have a horror book that is, I would say, like super mild horror. This is like horror for people who don't really like horror, but it's still a little bit scary. And that is Snake Eater by T. Kingfisher. I freaking loved this book. I thought it was so good. So I first started hearing about this author on BookTube. I read a couple of their books and I was like, oh, you know, they're all right. But then recently I've just read a handful of them that have been really good. If you've read a few of them and you're like, they're okay, maybe try a few more. So Snake Eater. With only a few dollars to her name and her beloved dog Copper by her side, Selena flees her past in the city to claim her late aunt's house in the desert town of Quartz Creek. Scorpions and spiders are better than what she left behind, because in Quartz Creek, there's a strange beauty to everything, from the landscape to the new friends, and more blue sky than Selena's ever seen. But something lurks beneath the surface, like the desert gods and spirits lingering outside Selena's house at night, keeping watch. Mostly benevolent, says her neighbor Grandma Billy. That doesn't ease the prickly sense that one of them watches closely and wants something from Selena. She can't even begin to imagine. And when Selena's search for answers leads to journal entries that her aunt left behind, she discovers a sinister truth about her new home. It's the haunting grounds of an ancient god known simply as Snake Eater, who her late aunt made a promise to that remains unfulfilled. So Snake Eater is taking a liking to Selena, an obsession of sorts that turns sinister, and now that Selena is the new owner of the home, he's hellbent on collecting everything he's owned. The characters in this are so weird and wacky and lovable, and like the mannerisms and like the descriptions of the dog Copper, like it's such a good dog description vibe. Like the things that your pets will do, like T. Kingfisher describes in the book, and I'm like, you don't always get that with like animal descriptions. Like, yeah, they're there, but it's done so well. I loved it. If you have someone who wants to dip a toe into horror but doesn't want something like super scary or that'll freak them out that much, like it's cozy, it's creepy, maybe recommend this one because it is quite a lovely read. Okay, next up we have Nowhere Burning by Catriona Ward. I love Catriona Ward. And I feel like this might be her best book yet. And this one I felt also was not as twisty as some of the others. There's still twists, don't get me wrong, because I feel like she is one of the twistiest of twisty authors. These ones, though, she kind of like leads you so you see them coming. And some of her other books, I don't feel like I saw any of the stuff coming. But this one, it's heartfelt, emotional, strange, eerie, just found family, so many different things. It's about this brother and sister. Riley and her brother Oliver, they set off in the pitch black of night, fleeing their troubled home. They're leaving their cousin, who was basically abusing them. They leave and they're heading for Nowhere, which is this abandoned ranch that was once the playground of a former eccentric movie star, but it's now a haven for like child and teen runaways. What awaits could be the freedom that they crave, but this mysterious clan guards dark secrets, and the scorched grounds hold the ghosts of the past. Riley quickly realizes that while she and Oliver may have escaped the devil they knew, something darker lurks in the burnt shell of Nowhere. Something which asks a terrible price for sanctuary. And so you have these two timelines going on too. So you also have these other two people, and they're doing kind of like a film documentary, and they decided to do one on the Nowhere children. So they're trying to find out if they're still around several years later, and try to get the people from town to talk and even admit to their existence. It's such a weird and sad and emotional read, and it's a tale of like survival and finding safety and a place to belong and so many things. And it was a really heartfelt and dark and effed up read, and I really loved it. Okay, so my number one horror read so far this year. And this was a super surprise because I'd never heard of this author. This one I randomly picked up from the library, and that is The Midnight Muse by Joe Kaplan. It's about a metal band's lead singer went missing in the woods, and the mushrooms there might have something to say about it. The dead collect in low places. That's what Bryn Werner, lead singer of the metal band Queen Carrion, wrote in her notebook before she vanished while staying at a cabin in Oregon's Umpqua National Forest. So a year later, on the anniversary of her disappearance, the rest of her bandmates visit the cabin to remember her and to find a way to move on. But tensions kind of arise over like who should be the new singer and who is responsible for Bryn's disappearance. And then the tensions boil over as they realize that not all is as it seems at Trail Creek Cabins. And so strange entries in the guest book write about visions of a pale form that moves through the trees, figures wearing gas masks lurk in the distance, and there's a strange fungus growing on the wall of the tunnel in the cabin's basement. That's right, there's a tunnel down there. Where does it go? Then they hear Bryn's voice echo impossibly through the forest, and the pale form that emerges from the trees is her perfect likeness. Is it a ghost or something else? Bryn knew that there was a secret in these woods. It's why she chased her muse here to finish her masterpiece. And so her masterpiece was the album that they were working on. They were starting to get some acclaim. They got some attention from a record label, Roadrunner Records. Bryn was like, I need to finish this last song before we can commit to anything. And so she went into the woods, and her muse was always this like weird Queen Carrion that seemed to call to her. And she thought if she went out there, she'd be able to complete their album, which was called like The Orchid, and finish this song. But then she disappeared. This book is dark and effed up, and it hits in all the right ways. It's so freaking weird. It's spore horror, mushroom horror. Mushrooms are weird. And so this was super weird, and I absolutely loved it. It is so far favorite horror of the year. If you like horror that has to do with music, this one is awesome. So what has been some of your favorite horror this year? Let me know. And if you enjoyed hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back, see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.